Support robotnation #1 comic book on the crowdfunding site Kickstarter. A 44-page sci-fi horror comic book for mature readers from New Zealand.
Yeah, so we're going to play this video in about 5 to 10 minutes of it, and I want your opinions on this, and I'm also going to give my opinions. This is what we're all about here. So this is a link for these guys. This is the EXP, the experience. So yeah, you can check out the rest of the after we finish later on. But this is their commentary on, do autographs really matter? Find out what the devil's advocates have to say. So let's go check this out, and then we'll come back after it's over, and then we'll have a chat about that.
I understand it on some level, especially if it's, oh, I wanted to meet that creator, but now that I've got a signed copy of the book, I don't need to. Or all I'm interested in are the big name signatures, McFarlane and whoever else.
Yeah.
Get those, I'll just send them into a private signing at CGC, so they'll be gold labeled and, graded. And it makes me wonder, are we as a collecting community devaluing an important part of our industry?
Yeah, and so for me, look, a lot of this stuff, as pretty much every topic we come to, not every topic, but pretty much every topic we come to on this show, there's a recurring trend. And that trend is going to be that it's going to matter to you individually what is worth more or not worth more, whether something is valuable or not valuable. And I don't mean necessarily monetarily, whether or not it has any sentimental value to whatsoever. So one thing, as we're going through this conversation, Kyle's talked a little bit about his preferences. I'm going to discuss my personal preferences because that's a lens to talk about this stuff through. I really want all those in chat. By the way, shout out. We got Alex in the chat. We got Ex-Lieutenant in the chat. I saw Sean posting some comments in the chat too. We'll definitely get to your comments in a little bit here. But I just want to say thank you for being here. What I also want to see from you in chat is if you like signatures, under certain conditions or for certain comic books, your rules about signatures, and also to go along with what basically inspired this topic, how you value those individual signatures on comic books and what that means to you. But one thing I definitely want to get into a little bit here as we start talking about signatures, it's because the conversation, even though that's what started it, it was the value of the signature. What does that add to like a raw comic book, for example? And why is that something that is kind of hard to pin down? And that was definitely the inspiration for this stream tonight, but it's not the only thing. We're also going to talk a little bit about things that are going on in the comic book scene right now. I made a post over Instagram not that long ago about something that I've been seeing over the last couple days. And it relates to a fan who had Charlie Cox, who played Daredevil in the Netflix Daredevil series and is going to reprise that role for Daredevil Born Again on a new MCU show. And that person had Charlie Cox sign a Daredevil #1. And I made a post about it because I saw some replies to that thread, actually a bunch of posts that person made. And so I went and followed that person, showed them some support by liking some of their tweets and following them. And I also made a post about it because that person was receiving a lot of venom and a lot of hate about having the actor Charlie Cox sign their Daredevil #1. And the first thing I want to say is shout out to the vast majority of the people that follow me on Instagram when I made that post, because most of you were extremely level-headed in your replies to that post. And I think that some people thought maybe I was somehow saying, because I think looking at the post, it kind of reads a little bit like people are mad that this happened. I'm not one of those people. And I just want to point that out to frame this conversation. If you are somebody who's mad at that, that's okay. We can talk about that. But it's weird that there are people that are actually mad about what another collector did with their comic book, in my opinion, because that's a personal choice. And so that's something we're going to talk about later in the show as well. But let's get to this topic here a little bit about the idea of having your comic book signed. And this to me is, you got to go all the way back. It's almost like a binary state. Comic book not signed, comic book signed. Because you start to kind of wheedle down the audience that you're looking for once that comic book is signed, especially when it comes in terms of what started the show, which is valuing signed comic books. Because it turns out there's a lot of people that actually don't like signed comic books. And I say that like that's a new thing, but I think it's something that if you've been collecting comic books, you've known that for a long time. There are people that view a creator signing a comic book, or for that matter, anybody signing a comic book, as defacing the comic book. There are people that view that's, think about anything you can do to a comic book. There are people that view cleaning and pressing comic books as restoration. There are people that view that as altering the comic book or damaging the comic book. People view slabbing as a cardinal sin. So it doesn't matter what you pick. You can find any topic, and comic book collectors will be divided on whether or not they think it's appropriate or not. So you've already kind of shrunk that prospective audience a little bit there once you talk about having a comic book signed. So, while I'm waiting for some of those replies to come through in chat and for you guys to let me know how you feel about signed comic books, I'll tell you a little bit about how I feel about signed comic books. So I grew up, the first time I think I ever had anything signed was a tiny little baseball card show in my hometown. And it was a couple baseball cards. I grew up in a small town in Washington. And so there were a couple Mariners there, Seattle Mariners from the baseball team. And they were not large names by any stretch of the imagination. At that point in the early 90s, the Mariners were not a very good team, much like they are now. And so it wasn't like a huge thing, but it was kind of fun to have these baseball cards that I'd collected to go meet that person and have them sign it. That was a cool thing. That was my first experience having somebody autograph something that was mine. And when I went to my first comic convention, I had comic books signed. I had like a Thunderbolts 1 signed by Kurt Busiek, for example, because I really, really love Thunderbolts 1. I love the twist in it. He was going to be at the show. That's really awesome. Other comics too, right? Yeah, I think signed comics are cool too, Big B. And so it's one of those things where, to me, it makes sense. To me, it's like a personal connection. You got to have that meeting and that interaction with a creator. And I totally get it. There are those that argue that it's cooler if you just go up and talk to them, have them sign an art print or something else, or not have them sign anything at all, and just have a conversation with them. I think there's something to be said for that too. I'll admit that if you're at a busy convention and that's your opportunity to meet a creator and you have them sign something, sometimes that signing interaction can take up a portion of your time that you have with that creator. If you have your comic in a bag and board and you're getting it out and you're discussing like, hey, we're going to have the sign and we're going to pay for that, that can take up some of that time. And if that time with that creator is the only thing that really matters to you, it makes sense why you might say, well, the signing of the comic book isn't important. And I completely respect the fact that there's a lot of people out there that just think that signing a comic book is sacrilege. It's just something you shouldn't do to a comic book because it's defacing it. That's your own personal choice you're going to make with your comic books. But I also respect those people, and I expect them to respect me in my decision to go have a comic book signed. I think that's something that, we get to do as fans with what we love. Do you agree with that, Kyle? I know you probably just kind of hopped back in, but.
Well, I kind of like you with your non.
And that's it. So my own personal opinion is, it's my book. I can do whatever the hell I want with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean,
who you are.
I get stuff signed because I had an interaction with that person, and it's like it's like an artist signing their work. I mean, original artwork is signed. I usually, if I interacted with somebody, I went through my comics, I pulled out something that I wanted them to sign, and then I went and got them to sign it, and I had an interaction with them. It's kind of momentum of the occasion where you got to meet them or whatever.
Hmm.
You know, and then there's others that I didn't get anything signed.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, who was it? Like, I forgot these guys. You know, I was chatting away to them and had a little short video made up and everything, and I forgot to get this signed.
Right.
Right, and I would love to get that signed because I've actually asked these guys to come on, hit me up and we'll come and do an interview with them about the book and about all this, because why not? They did great work. Let's talk about it. Let's promote you guys and so on. I think there's some things about the whole comic scene that really annoys me, and that's the fact is somebody else telling me what I can do with what I have or what's mine. I mean, I met Dave Johnson years ago online on DeviantArt. He's known as Devil Pig on there,
Yeah.
and I went up to him and said, "Hey, we've been chatting on DeviantArt for years, mate. So can I get that signed?" And he goes, "Yeah." So now I know Dave Johnson. I know stuff, and I got a couple more stuff signed out. And like you said, personal touch. And there's people if I meet them, then I want that signature. But there's other people like this here, right? I don't even like what's his name, Brian
Bendis.
Brian Bendis that much, right? But I love this book. I do love his comic books. I have the hardcover of this, and I also have the script book of this, right? Which is about the same size, just a bit bigger than this, and then I've got the oversized hardcover book of the powers because I know I like his talent and his skill. And then I picked this up, and then I bought this, and Dave goes, "Hey, this is this weekend, right?" At his counter, and Dave goes, "Oh, hey, at a store, oh, I've got other Bender stuff you want." No, I'm good, man. I just wanted the one on this, and that's all I care about. Because now I have the script book of Powers, I have the hardcover of Powers, and I also have his signature. Now I've got the triptych, right? And I don't need to ever meet Bendis or anything like that, but I do enjoy his talent, and removing, and plus, I don't know. I wish they'd done a better job with the. There's something about the live action. Even though I like Shelter Copley, he's amazing. South African actor and everything is amazing. Like, I think he's brilliant. If you guys haven't seen the Powers TV series, very good.
Yeah.
I just think if it was Netflix time, it was in time with Netflix, this thing would be popping and we'd still be seeing the live action now. But because it was pre-Netflix hoopla, we didn't get to see this go to Netflix like we saw Lucifer go to Netflix. But also, like Dave Johnson, great artist. The other thing I have this free sketch by Dave. What's his name? Dave. Was it not from what? V for Victory. V for Vendetta. Sorry, my bad. He did a sketch for free.
That's cool.
And for free.
Yeah.
This is something he was just for free. And his, so the other amazing thing I had was with not Warren Ellis, what's his, the Boys artist, right? The Boys artist, Grant. It's not even on. Derek. I keep saying Grant Robertson, but it's Derek Robertson, right? This is one of my favorite characters out of all time in indie comics, and by indie I mean like not superhero,
Yeah.
right? About a journalist, sci-fi journalist. This is Spider Jerusalem. I actually got to had one of my friends do me up as this character, like airbrush on me as this character, like all the tattoos and everything. And her daughter actually made me the glasses that I wore, and I've got it on Facebook and stuff. But this cost me $250 in 2007, right? And I said to Derek, I said, whenever, and because I'd met Derek on Facebook or might have, or on social media, and said, "Look, Derek, whenever you come to New Zealand, I am going to come up with a box of stuff that I have of yours, and I'm going to get you to sign it." He said, "Sure." So I did. I took a big box of stuff and had my boys. I had, I had my transmat, and learned that I think issue number 3 was a low, and I have 2 copies of that, low volume, because people didn't even believe in the comic book that much, and so people short ordered it, and so I had that signed twice. I had my, issue 1 signed, and so on. And the important, and I'm going to finish off here, and I'm going to have your input, because because you're a creator and an artist who goes to conventions and stuff. But for me, like, that is it. Like, I have a lot of stuff that I've never met the people of, like Bendis, right? And there's other people that I've met and I've got signatures of that I bought stuff that I've never met and probably never will. But there are some people like Eduardo Rizzo, his work's up there, that I met because of, he did a series with Jason Aaron called Scout. He did the covers for that. And I love that series because it was about on the reservation and about an undercover FBI agent working on the reservation because of all the drugs and the stuff. And I have a friend, right, who's actually, Native American. And so, we talk about stuff like that, about what the res is like and stuff. And I find stuff about that because it's kind of, I enjoy research. I enjoy cultural things. And I do a lot of research for my own books. But I don't understand the idea of this elitism about comics and signatures and why you shouldn't do this. And that whole Charlie Cox thing, it's his book. It's his book. He paid for that. You have no say in what he paid for, right?
Okay, we went to the Amazing Arizona Comic Con, and my wife got the compendium for The Walking Dead and got the actor that played Glenn to sign it, Robert Kirkman to sign it, and the guy that played Shane to sign it. That was just kind of cool because it's those actors that brought that property to life, plus the creator of that property. And I, there's other, of course I want some of the others to sign it eventually too, but the fact that that person that either played those characters or created that book or drew that book or wrote that book had it in their hand and actually signed it on a mass-produced item. If it was the original, they would sign it up at the top anyway. If it was original artwork, they'd sign it, date it. It would have the publisher. So to have them actually sign a mass-produced thing, that means they had it in their hand. There's not going to be very many of those that they've actually touched because there's only going to be X amount of people that have had that certain item signed.
Yeah.
And then you got to meet them. My wife got her picture taken with them and got it signed. I had to man the booth, so she surprised me with that.
Yeah.
But and then there's other instances where I got to meet different people and get them to sign it, and maybe it was an actor, maybe it was the creator or whatever. If I was just in it to collect and have it CGCs, had it slabbed, have it whatever,
yeah,
or if I just collected it because it was the book and I wanted it in the original format or whatever, there's people that do that. I mean, for me, I'm not one of them. And I collect everybody's signature. If it's an indie guy that this is their first book, I'll have them sign it. If it's the big name that's been working for Marvel for 30 years, I'll have it sign it. I don't usually pay for signatures. There's been a few that I've paid for just because, okay, we're, like Brian Polito, I have probably 20 signatures for him. He gets signatures and then he gives that to a nonprofit. So he's doing it for a good cause. So yeah, I'll throw some money in there. It's helping whatever organization it was, and then I get signed. I have action figures signed by Brian. I have comics signed by him. There's been others that I've gotten $1 or $2 to do a signature or whatever. I don't usually do the high $130, $50. I just because I'm not that kind of collector. If I saw that I was going to be able to resell it, okay, I might invest that in that because I know I'm going to CGC it and then I'm going to sell it and I'm going to get a return. But for my own collection, I usually just want it for the experience, and I don't want to have to pay for that experience.
Yeah.
To an extent, I'll donate or whatever, or some of them are elderly. And the comic industry hasn't really provided for them in their old age. So yeah, I'm going to throw a few bucks their way because that's how they make their living, and that's how they get their doctor's appointments and pay for their medication. And I'm getting, I'll pay for their signature if I'm going to get it. But for me personally, it's just it's for my own pleasure anyway. And I'm not going to tell somebody else that they can't get the actors to sign it, or I mean, you could have. I mean, somebody had Stan Lee sign something he didn't even work on, so it's like.
Yeah, they talk about that later on. That like Stan just signs whatever Stan Lee presents, so like never even booked. But it's like if it's my property, I can do whatever I want with it. Like, why would you have a hissy fit over that? And I think a lot of like when you mentioned like Glenn, right? So when I was opening up my store, I bought these. Right? I've never met those guys. I knew these were like the only ones that were going to be there. Right? This is from the Comic-Con New York thing. So there was this like the volume 1, right? Compendium. I still haven't read it. And it's really hard because I don't want to touch it too much because the friggin' stickers run off. They should have signed it in here, right? There's all this friggin' space here. They should have signed it there. Why would you go and put it on the cover like that? But hey, it's done. So there is that one. Then there's volume 2. Right, this has got 2 signatures. So it came as a set, and I paid something maybe around about. I've never read the comic. I've only read about 2-3 pages of it. But this is like 100. Oh, there's about 90 pages, about 90 issues. Sorry, 45 pages per. I think 45, something like that, issues per. Per hardcover. But these are never going to be made again, from what I understand. They're just paperbacks now. So these are like first run, first print. New York Comic-Con, signed Tony Moore, Robert Kirkman, and Charlie Adlard, But this book was never supposed to be as big as it became, And the TV show made it more than what it was. It's a black and white friggin' zombie thing that nobody really. There's a billion zombie stories out there.
I had that number 1 in my hand, and I thought, because money was short, and I was like, I'm not going to get this one. I put it back, and now it's worth bukus of money. But here's the thing with my compendium. It's worn out. I read it. I opened it up. I broke the spine. It's in rough shape. It's not a mint, but they signed it, and I love it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's anyway.
Oh, I read somewhere that this Kelly Thompson had worked on. I mean, on Wiki, right? Had worked on a John Constantine book. So because John is one of my top 3, so I took it up to her and I went, "Hey, I heard that can you draw on this?" And so she did. She goes, "I've never worked on it, but hey, you've got a ex-library book." Right, an ex-library book, and she actually drew that on there, and like I was great. But the other thing was that I went and bought a $50 book for my niece, which she did like a Wonder Woman that she worked on, that she illustrated herself as a present for my niece, and so it kind of worked out because I got her to do a John Constantine sketch, and then also paid for a signed book for her from her thing. I think people don't realize that, like, you just like you said, that these signatures, these sketches are after effect of all their hard labor. These are just an add-on for the extras, for their, for income for them. And I think we have to, as artists, and as not artists, sorry, as convention goers, understand that that they've done their work, right? They've done their work and they got paid for whatever. And for Marvel or DC, and they might get a bit of residual if, and I know, what's his name said it? Who's the guy who did like, who did the metal, who's thing's sidekick? I've got him tip of my head, I can't remember. Captain America's sidekick. Barnes, Bucky Barnes, right? So he did the Bucky Barnes with Winter Soldier, right?
Winter Soldier.
He said he got more money by being a walk-on extra in the movie than he did as a creator of Bucky Barnes and for Marvel Comics. And because you look at the character, oh yeah, he must have got heaps. He goes, no, he didn't.
Yeah.
It's a work for hire. You get that much and you're done.
Yeah.
And I think the more real scene, and I know sometimes can be iffy. The indie comics is probably the real scene where you get paid your value.
Yeah.
And and it's kind of because you as a creative set your price. Like when I asked Edwin to come in color, after he suggested him, he gave me 2 prices, and I went with the price that was workable within my limit, right? Because I'm not,
right.
Well,
I mean, you have to.
I don't have so much. Yeah, but I at the end of the day, you're getting, you're paying for someone's work on your title, and you're actually creating something that you believe in, and then you're putting it out there, and you're hoping that folks will appreciate what you're doing and look to support it, like Roger just now. So I mean, I think a lot of times people don't value art, and it's getting worse because of AI right now, which I friggin' FAI art, right? Because people think that just putting words in a friggin' prompt is creating art isn't art, because everybody who's ever
soulless. It doesn't have a soul. It doesn't. It well, I mean, soulless. It doesn't have. It just doesn't have the soul that the blood, sweat, and tears that an actual creator puts into producing the artwork. It's prompts that the computer puts together all these images that it's stolen from everybody else into an image. Which technically humans do that in their own brain, but we put in our own blood, sweat, tears, life experiences, love, hate, fear, all of that. I mean, it goes into those pieces to produce what we produce. Time, which each piece we put out is in exchange for the time that we have, and we only have a finite time on this earth. Yeah. Years ago, somebody had asked me, what motivates you? Love and fear of death. Yeah. Love and death are what motivate me, and love for family, love for my wife, love for my grandkids, love for my kids, brotherly love of other creators, and then the fear of death, that you're going to leave something undone on this earth that you wanted to get done. Yeah, so those motivate you. So
please support the Robot Nation comic book on Kickstarter. A 44-page full-color sci-fi horror comic book for mature readers from New Zealand. The comic book is translated into 3 languages, English, Spanish and Portuguese, with amazing art and variant covers from artists around the world. This first issue of Robot Nation will be released as self-contained one-shot style complete books. Each issue has 2 stories. Visit Kickstarter.com and use Robot Nation in the search bar.